First of all, welcome to AMI Connect. Thanks for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time. You have now joined the Now with Dave Brown session. And my name is Andrika Delanarol. I'm the host or host of the session, moderator, and I'm also the senior producer of the show. So we got a few things that are going to be happening today, but before I get into our agenda, I'm just going to tell you a bit about just some housekeeping items that I wanted to address. So I want to remind you that we do have live closed captioning available for this session. And to access live closed captioning, you need to click on closed caption at the bottom of your Zoom window. Select show subtitle to turn them on and select hide subtitle to turn them off. You can also adjust your font size settings and how your subtitles are shown in the subtitle settings window. If you are using a screen reader, do not enable closed captioning. All right, so I know a lot of you will have questions as well. There's going to be two different methods that you're going to be using for questioning, but just to let you know, we do have a question period. So I do recommend you save your questions for that time. The ways you can ask questions are you can raise your virtual hand, which is it's one of the options on Zoom, or you can use the virtual chat bar to type in a question, and we'll get to it. And again, in our question period. And I also want to remind you that if you are encountering technical issues, please do visit the info booth at the main page. A member of the VFairs team will assist you and answer your questions. And again, the info booth is located in the main lounge for AMI Connect. All right, and as you may have heard by now, there will be a prize awarded randomly to one attendee here today. Just by attending this session, you have been entered into the draw. So winners will be contacted via email after the event. Good luck, guys. Don't know what they're giving away, so kind of excited to find out myself. Anyways, okay, so our agenda for today is it's going to be pretty free flowing, but essentially we're going to start off by introducing our panelists, going one by one, getting to know some of the members of the Now with Dave Brown team. Then we'll get into a question period where you're welcome to write in any questions you have to any of our panelists, whether if it's pertaining to their jobs, to how they got into radio, you name it, whatever you want to ask, you are welcome to. And then we're going to close off with a staple to our program, which is our weekly news quiz. If you've been listening to the show, it's been part of our Tuesday program. Every Tuesday, we have panel or contestants, and Mike Ross, our news director, he moderates that and asks questions from the news, from news and current affairs. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to have a little bit more fun with it. We have an entertainment theme, and that's where you, the audience, gets to participate. And I will walk down I'll walk through some of the rules behind that and how it works. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start off with our panelists. We have 4 people joining us today. First, we have Dave Brown, the host of the program, Megan Gilmore, our accessibility reporter, Shiny Saravanamuthu, who's our community reporter based out of Montreal, and we have Mike Ross, our news director. So I'm going to first throw to Dave Brown to tell us a bit about himself and what he does on this show.
Hey guys, I'm Dave. I'm the host of the show. That's pretty self-evident. I'm just on the air trying to get us from point A to point B to point Z on any given day. I am legally blind. I was born legally blind. I'm an albino, and I've been in the radio and TV business for about, we're approaching 13 years now. So what used to be an answer where I was like, oh, I'm a young guy in the game, I'm now rapidly approaching middle age.
You're not that old, Dave.
Nah, we're getting there.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. And Dave is, of course, such an integral part of the show. He's the host, but he's so much more than a host. He's also very much a producer to this program. All right, so let's move over to Mike Ross, who's our news director. You hear him every day on the program.
Hi, I'm Mike. I host the Gazette, which leads into Now with Dave Brown. So I put together the hour of news along with Jeff Ryman on sports and Daniel Penamondo on entertainment, and then carry that on into Now with Dave Brown, where I deliver the regional news package, as well as putting together our business story of the day, our big business story of the day, and this day in history, where we look back at 3 or 4 big events that have happened on that particular day in history. I've been in broadcasting for almost 30 years and have been at AMI since 2015, late 2015, and have just having a blast working with Andrika and with Dave and Dan and Jeff and everybody on our show. So it's great to be here today and look forward to hosting another quiz with you and seeing how many answers you guys can get right.
Thank you very much, Mike. All right, let's move on to Megan Gilmore, who's our accessibility reporter. You can catch her every other Wednesday with her accessibility reports. You can also hear her as one of our news panelists every Friday. All right, Megan, I think you have to unmute your mic there.
Yes, thank you. So like Andrika said, my name's Megan Gilmore. I'm a freelance journalist based out of Toronto right now, and I've been in journalism for almost a decade. It depends on what years you want to count there. Most of my background's been in print media, so magazines, newspapers, that sort of thing. But I actually started with AMI back in 2016 with their live audio shows. And yeah, so for Now with Dave Brown, I do accessibility reports, then the news panel as Andrika said.
Thank you so much, Megan. All right, and Shiny Saravanamuthu, who's based out of Montreal. She's our community reporter. You can hear her once a month on the show. Hi, Shiny. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. So my name is Shiny, and I am legally blind. I was diagnosed with RP at the age of 21. And the life that I have right now, did not know I would have. And I guess it's thanks to having RP. I never thought I would be on radio or television of any sort. So I'm quite new to the AMI family. I joined in September, so I guess I'm the newbie or the rookie or whatever you like to call me. When I'm not here once a month, I am actually an accountant by profession. I dabble in a few things. I podcast, I blog, and I'm also a cake decorator. So I guess it all started off in the beginning of just trying to do as much as I can to kind of not show the world that I was blind, but now it's kind of like an advocacy thing that I do, that try to show the world that regardless of our disability or visual impairment, we're still able to do the things that we like. And I guess that's what I try to do, break as many stigmas as possible, one day at a time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shiny. All right. Okay. So as I mentioned before, we are going to open this up to the audience to ask any questions that you might have for any of the panelists or regarding the show. So right now, we do have a message in the chat. Now, I do want to remind you, you could message us in the chat or raise your virtual hand if you have a question. All right. So we have a write-in from someone named Camille. Thank you for writing in. They write, how many hours a day are needed to prep the Now with Dave Brown program? Dave, I'll throw you for this one.
Andrika, that question might go better to you, seeing as how you're the one pulling the midnight hours here. That's a great question. It's really tough to quantify because we do have a number of people who put their fingers and hands all over the show. But I would say when you look at almost collective manpower between Andrika, our senior producer, between me, between Mike, between our contributors, I mean, you're looking at well over 24 hours of manpower to put it together. But I would say most mornings I'll come in at about around 7:30 or so, and I'll spend a good hour to an hour and 15 minutes working on news of the day, things like our daily poll. We'll do the 2 hours of the show itself, and then usually after the show, during the afternoon or evening, I'm putting another 3 to 4 to 5 hours in terms of doing preparation for the next day. So I would say it's a ton, but it's hard to quantify.
It sure is a ton of hours. And it's very interesting because a one day show, 2 hours. I know it seems like 2 hours, but it's something that we could prepare the day before, sometimes weeks in advance. So it's a very great question. Thank you for that, Camille. All right, we have a question here from Brian, who wrote in the chat box. He asks, Dave, I heard you used to work for CBC.
That's right, I did. When I was first breaking into the industry, I did a bunch of internships at CBC, both CBC Radio 3 in Vancouver. I was an intern out there working on some music documentaries and some research ahead of the South by Southwest Music Festival. I came back to Ottawa and did an internship there working for the All in a Day afternoon show as an associate chase producer. And out of those opportunities, they came to me and asked me to be their morning traffic reporter, which I did for approximately 3.5 years. And the great irony, of course, is that as someone who's legally blind, I don't drive. So I was the blind guy who was giving traffic advice, which was a lot of fun. And people always used to think it was funny when I would give in walking condition updates and public transit updates during my traffic reports. And I guess they eventually put A and B together and realized why I was doing that. And it was fun. I used to give really holistic traffic reports. It was a great time. That experience breaking into the industry was wonderful. I was very fortunate.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer, Dave. All right, we do have a virtual hand that's been risen here. Ali Musa has a question. Ali, I ask that you unmute your mic and let us know what your question is.
Hi guys. I just want more of a question for Dave. How do you find being in the industry today, in the broadcasting industry today, even as a low vision person? And I enjoy the show. You guys have a very good format going.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for those kind words, Ali, and thank you for the tweets that you send our way. We always appreciate getting that feedback from you in real time. I think the industry is in a very interesting place because something has happened in regards to democratizing. Oh my gosh, I talk for a living. Giving more people more voices and more opportunities and more platforms. And that is really starting to trickle into all forms of media. I still love the platform that we've created here at AMI to allow people with disabilities a certain amount of voice, to allow that lens to be applied to current affairs and news, which is what we do a lot of on our show. But as someone myself who's low vision, I'm really just enjoying the way in which more and more people can communicate. And even though I have this platform 2 hours a day, even I'm able to share a few more thoughts and opinions and see that growth and see new voices and fresh ideas that are being brought forward in a lot of different spaces. And if you'll allow me to elaborate, I'm sorry, I know I'm going kind of long on this answer. For a long time, broadcasting was really meant to be this big, wide net, and to a certain extent that still exists. Right now with Dave Brown has a little bit of everything, a little bit of elbow, as I like to call it, a little bit of everything. But there's so many spaces now where you can really get unique perspectives and do some narrow casting based on specific areas of interest. So someone who loves movies, there's so many podcasts and YouTube channels available for movies, and it goes for sports. And Shiny is someone who says she loves cooking and cake decorating. There's probably a million YouTube channels and podcasts for that too. I just think we live in this really golden age of sharing more voices from more people, and I think this is one that I think might be worth bouncing around the table a little bit, talking about what everybody here, the panelists, thinks about in regards to sort of the modern state of media.
Thanks for that answer, Dave. All right, so we have an audience member named Tim who wants to know if anyone has a favorite episode of Now with Dave Brown. What would it be so far? Mike, I'm going to throw to you for this one.
There we go.
There you go.
I would say that my favorite moment to this point came when So I do the news, but I also have a bit of a background as a producer in radio. So I have come up with some guest ideas or track down some guests, and will fill in for Andrika when she's away in that senior producer role. And so for me, being a producer in radio, one of the great things is landing that big guest. And I don't think it got any bigger for us as far as certainly name recognition goes than when we landed Michael J. Fox not too long ago, and got him to come on the show, got him to talk about his new book. And so the big get is always great as a producer, and the conversation that he and Dave had, I found fascinating. And yeah, so that really stands out for me as one of the absolute highlights for sure.
Thanks so much, Mike. All right, so we do have a bunch of virtual hands that are up right now. So I'm going to start with James. James, what is your question?
Hello, folks. Hi, Dave. How's your injury after a week run? Still sore?
Oh yeah, I'm still tight from the 4 kilometers that I put in last Friday. Maybe tomorrow I'll be walking properly again.
Well, I hope so. Well, I hope so. Question. Now, I hear from your voice every morning, so I have a sense of your mood every morning, Dave. But now, the question is, who came up with the horn?
Oh, James, the great question. And by the way, much like with Ollie, we always appreciate the live feedback you give us on a regular basis. So great to have you connect with us here at this event today. So what James is referring to, for those of you who haven't heard the show, is every day we start the show with this really kind of funky song that has this piano lead up, and then these horns hit that let the show go. And right before the horns hit, I go, let's hit the horns and go. And a little secret here, when we were putting together Now with Dave Brown, I was given the freedom to pick the music. And I was looking for songs that I thought had a little bit of hip hop, but a little bit of jazz, and some real instrumentation that I appreciate. And I would say I just love hearing brass instruments. And as soon as I heard that, I thought to myself, yep, that's how I want to start the show every day, because it hits me with energy. I hope it hits the audience with energy, and it really sets the tone.
Can we get you to say it right now, Dave?
Oh my gosh, it's hard to do. I don't have the script in front of me.
You need the music.
I need the music, but
to pump you up.
I can try this. Welcome to Now with Dave Brown. I'm Dave Brown. Let's hit the horns and go.
I look forward to that every morning as well. So thank you, James, for that comment and question. All right, so we do have a question from in our chat box from someone named Stuart. Stuart says, I'm a student for Connect for Life in the broadcasting training program. My question is, how do you get involved with AMI? That's a great question, Stuart. Thank you for that. So the best way to get in touch with AMI is to email info@ami.ca for more information about our apprenticeships and job opportunities. All right, let's go back to the virtual hands. Devin has a question. Devin, what's up?
Hello, everyone. This is Devin. And first of all, before I ask my question, I want to tell Mike that I had to sympathize with you the other night. I think it was Saturday or maybe Monday. Yes, I guess it was Monday when Toronto lost to the Canadians. And you sounded so sad. I really had to sympathize with you. I'm a Canadians fan, but I had to sympathize with you then. Dave, if I may, I'd like to ask you a ask Dave anything type question. I won't embarrass you, I promise. And I had already written it in, but I wasn't there when you actually answered the question. I understand that you went, at least for a few years, to the Montreal Association for the Blind. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. When I was younger, lived in Notre Dame de Grace, NDG in Montreal, which was where the Montreal Association for the Blind was. And that was really my first connection with assistive services and services provided by the Montreal Association for the Blind. So that's where I got a lot of my early adaptive equipment, like my telescope and my magnifying glass, various prescription glasses and sunglasses as well. And that's actually way back in the 1990s when I learned how to type. They had typing classes. And at the time, I never would have thought that, hey, learning this skill on this keyboard would be so applicable to everything I do in the rest of my life. And now here I am as this pretty excellent typer. So I never would have thought that some course that I hated doing when I was 10 years old would be so valuable in the rest of my life. And I think that's a life lesson for a lot of things. Like, I wish I had listened to my mom and kept doing my piano lessons after I was only 6 or 7 years old. That might have been useful too. But we should give Mike Ross an opportunity here, because Mike, I felt bad on Tuesday morning as well, because the first words that you heard from me when you welcomed me onto the Gazette was me singing Ole Ole, and I didn't realize how rude that probably was to you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I woke up to a text from my neighbor that said Ole, Ole, Ole. So,
Okay.
so you weren't the first. And Devin, thank you. Yeah, of course I was sad, because in my other life, I do announcing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we're when you work for a team, you're even more invested than you are as a fan. So it was pretty crushing for us to have it come to an end like that, especially in a year when we didn't have fans until that last game. So it was nice to have people there, and it would have been nice to be able to sort of continue that and have more people come to our games this year. But you're cheering for a team that's up 1-0 in the division final now, and look like they could be giant killers. So, congratulations to your team, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the ride through the playoffs.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for that. All right. So we have another write-in from Elena, and she wants to learn a bit more about what a community reporter does on Now with Dave Brown. Shiny, I'll throw to you. Sorry, 1 second, Shiny. We'll have to unmute you. There
Sorry
you go.
about that. So I guess, sorry. So I guess it kind of started at like a awkward, different time. I started during the pandemic. So it was a little challenging in the beginning, just because there weren't as many events, and luckily I was able to find a lot of people that were hosting events online, which has been great. And personally for me, I have RP. So like sometimes before even COVID, like I wouldn't go to as many events if it was at night in a new place. So having it be online was kind of nice, because it's in the comfort of your own home. You attend the event, you get to be a part of the event. And then you close your computer, and then you can go back to whatever part of the house you want, and you don't have to worry about how to get from point A to point B. So that was kind of nice. But so far my experience as being a community reporter has been really nice, because like it gives me a reason to go and try out different events that I normally wouldn't, and like explore, and also doing so you get to meet so many other people who are a part of somewhat the same community, and some who aren't, and then kind of share your story as well. So I'm hoping that COVID kind of calms down soon, maybe in the fall, and I'll be able to go in person and try out events and report back to everyone about what's happening in Montreal, and hopefully our festivals will come back. And so for now, I really enjoy my experience, and we'll see in about a couple of months if that experience changes in a real life experience that I can share with everyone.
Thank you so much, Shiny. All right, we have a question from Sebastian to Megan. What do you enjoy most about being part of this show as a contributor?
Well, thanks for the question, Sebastian. I really appreciate it. And I forgot to mention in my introduction that I'm also legally blind. I have ROP, not to be confused with RP, which Shani has. Probably as a contributor, given my role as the accessibility reporter, what I really like is that it's a position where we do actually try to kind of virtually visit as many parts of Canada as we can and learn about topics that I would like personally probably never encounter on a day-to-day basis. And but then when I'm doing the reporting, so all the things that go on before you hear the report, for me, it's always actually just meeting people and hearing the personal stories behind the issues that we're bringing.
All right, sorry guys, I don't know if you heard me there, but we have one more question from James, who writes, Megan, what perks your interest in a story? All right, Megan.
Right now, what would perk my interest is if I never had to play with the mute or unmute button again. But you know, we'll do that. That's a great question, James. Thanks. For me, yeah, it depends on the story. A lot of people ask, like, where do stories come from? And sometimes actually they come from Andrika and Dave, who, you know, send you an email and say, go do this. A lot of times, or sometimes they've come from you. They've come from the audience, and we really appreciate that. For me, it's often if there's a question that you can't find an easy or a simple answer to. So one of the things I like doing is just showing the different ways that disability intersects with different parts of our lives and giving as full or a nuanced picture of that as I possibly can. So for me, that's actually always really personally interesting, all the nuances and knowing that there's some bigger questions and bigger issues here that we can explore and keep looking at from different angles.
Can I pick up on that a little bit? Because I think that's such a great question. And I think Megan gave such a great answer there. Megan, you've had a couple, I mean, you always do excellent work, and it's really varied, right? Even just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the new accessibility legislation in BC and some of the questions that people are raising about that, which is really, it's a very practical, tangible report. But we also did a conversation earlier this year about the language of disability and how the language of disability impacts the way legislation can be framed, different models that people use, different understandings of disability. So what's so great is that versatility in the reports that you bring, and sometimes the really nuanced look, the nuanced takes we can have, and nuanced examinations we can have on how one word or one framing of a word can have all kinds of cascading impacts elsewhere inside conversations and legislation and disability.
Yeah, that was, I'm glad you mentioned that one, Dave, because that was a fun one to do. And it was fairly different from some of the typical, quote unquote, typical ones that we've done. There actually isn't a typical one because they're all very different. But I think with that one too, what we kind of wanted to do, what I wanted to do is kind of slow the process down for people and see, like, this is what's going on behind the scenes before we even get a piece of legislation, before we get a government announcement. These are the types of conversations that are happening, and it matters. And even like, there's a big difference between, you know, when I meet somebody for the first time and they want to know, like, how do I talk about your is it a disability? Is it blindness? Is it, like, what word do you use to describe this? There's a big difference between that conversation and how do we talk about disability in terms of providing a service or in terms of making a law. So it might sound like the same question, but it's actually incredibly different depending on the context. And it was really fun to kind of parse that out. And Dave, you were a really good sport that day to indulge me on that existential question.
All right. Okay. So we have about maybe 17 minutes left here. We could get into our quiz, but we do have a few more questions.
Keep the questions coming.
We'll keep going. Yeah. Okay. So we have a question, another question from Stuart. Stuart wants to know, how has it been different doing Now with Dave Brown during COVID times? Dave, I'll throw to you.
Okay, I shouldn't start by laughing because you know how much human suffering and how difficult COVID-19 has been for so many people. But let's just say trying to do a nationally televised TV show with half the crew chiming in on one software, half the crew being in a separate studio, one member of the crew being behind glass that I can somewhat see, another member of the crew being trapped in another room down the hall, another member of the crew further away from that. Let me tell you how difficult internal communication is in just executing the show on any given day. It is a miracle, and it's also a tribute to the incredible preparation work that Andrika Delanarol puts in, the incredible professionalism of people like Bruce McLarian, Seb McKenzie, Daniel Penamondo, Mike Ross, and I shouldn't have started naming names because now I will have forgotten to name really important names. And that's just internally, let alone when we're trying to make sure that we're connecting properly with people like Shiny and Megan and our other contributors and making sure they look good on virtual cameras and making sure the microphones are working. So like just the execution of the show has been difficult, but it's also been an incredible learning lesson for us. The flip side of that is that COVID-19 is one of these stories that touches upon our lives in so many different ways, that we all have that feeling of isolation from our friends and our family, the feeling of worry about a friend's or family member who might be vulnerable, and even friends or family members who may have dealt with an infection or been to the ICU or unfortunately passed away. I think peripherally that's touched us all. So it's been both a very enlightening time from a learning perspective, both professionally, but also just learning a lot more about people and their experiences around the country and around the world. It's very much been a multi-pronged experience.
Thank you for that, Dave. We do have another question, which is similar, has to do with the pandemic, but looking forward ahead. Kent wants to know what specific circumstances in the recession of the pandemic have to happen to enable your team to return to the studio.
Do we have someone from HR in this panel? Or
Unfortunately, no.
By the way, Kent,
it's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. I think vaccination is going to be a huge part, whether that be our own internal members or just a critical mass societally. Obviously, there are certain individuals on our team who might be more vulnerable as well to infection, so we have to be mindful of that. It hopefully will come sooner than later, but AMI has worked really hard to try and keep the employees as safe as possible. We have our internal protocols from a couple of us who have been granted access to come into the building every couple of days. And the company's done a really good job trying to keep as many people as safe as possible. HR might get mad at me for even saying as much as I did, but I did.
Yeah, what I can say is throughout the whole pandemic is we, like every other company, are following health and safety protocols. We are following the guidelines from our health officials and our governments, provincially and federally. And of course, AMI has their protocols as well. So only time can tell when we will be able to return to our studio, but maybe one day. We're keeping high hopes, right, Dave? So
oh yeah,
awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote in and for joining the panel. We do have a few minutes. Now, I lied before. We actually have to be out of here by 2:55. So we have 7 minutes left, but I think we could have some fun and have a news quiz. A news quiz that's focused on entertainment news. Now, we're not going to do any rounds here, no points, nothing like that. The best way to participate in this quiz is to raise your hand virtually to answer the question. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around to each of our panelists. They're going to state a question. Before they provide the options, you have a few seconds to raise your hand. And if someone does raise their hand, I'll give them the chance to answer the question. If not, we'll provide the answers, and then we'll go from there. And you can raise your hand and choose an answer. If you're right, you'll hear a sound. If you're wrong, you'll also hear a buzzer sound, and then we'll go from there. All right. So I'm first. What I have to do is share my screen. So bear with me for one moment here while I do that. Okay. So. Mike Ross, you want to start things off?
All right, here we go. Question number 1. Oh, you shared your screen now. How do I get into my screen so I can see the questions?
You have to hit escape. You have to hit escape, and then you can jump into. Then it'll minimize the window, and then you can jump into your toolbar.
There we go. Thank you, Dave.
That's what I'm here for.
All right. Question number one. An album that was nearly a half century overdue was returned to a Cleveland library recently. What album was it? What album was it?
All right, just give us 1 second here. I'm also losing my screen.
All right.
Oh, here it is. 1 second, guys. Well,
I see
clearly,
James has the answer.
James has got an answer.
Sorry, I don't know exactly which album it was, but it was Bob Dylan.
You got it. Give them the point. I know we're not keeping points, but give them the virtual point anyway. Bob Dylan's Self-Portrait. It was checked out back in 1973 by Howard Simon. He kept it 48 years past its return date, or by his calculations, 17,480 days overdue. He is now 73 years old, returned the album to the library along with a check for $175 for the costs. The library says it's grateful, especially since it no longer imposes overdue fines. It kind of reminds me of a Seinfeld episode that I was just watching yesterday on demand, where there's the Tropic of Cancer book that goes missing, and the library cop bookman comes after Jerry after all those years. So Howard Simon, the real life Seinfeld.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Okay, Dave, we're going to throw over to you for the next question.
Right on. Okay, so Toronto actor Paul Solis died last week at the age of 90. He was the first actor to voice what superhero in this self-titled animated series?
All right, 1 second. We do have someone who wrote in, Karen writes in, Spider-Man. Spider-Man
does whatever a spider can. Ding, ding, ding. In a 2018 interview with the Canadian Press, Solis said he was initially, quote, at a loss on how to portray the role, partly because he didn't feel like a superhero growing up, but it turned out Spider-Man creator Stan Lee wanted Spidey to have more human characteristics than other heroes of the era. Paul Solis is also known for voicing Hermie the Elf in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Learning more and more with you guys. All right, Mike, I'm going to throw back to you with the next question.
All right. This past Saturday, the world lost the Grammy-winning vocalist known for the single Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Who was that artist? We got some hands going up.
All right, 1 second here. Sorry, guys. I'm losing my window and I cannot see anything. Do you see which hands are going up, Mike?
I see Nevin. Nevin Humphrey is the
Okay.
first hand that I saw go up.
All right, Nevin. What do you think it is?
Not unmuted, though.
Not unmuted. All right,
No.
guys. Sorry about this. 1 second here. Ah, here we go. Okay. Nevin, where are you? Nevin, do you have your hand raised? I think you might have put it down. All right, I'm going to have to go to the next person. Devin.
That would be BJ Thomas.
That would be B.J. Thomas. Way to go. Passed away from lung cancer on the weekend at the age of 78. And the song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, really shot Thomas to superstardom in 1969, thanks to the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Song was also, by the way, covered extensively by many, many artists, including Engelbert Humperdinck and Johnny Mathis.
Awesome. All right, Shiny, you have the next question.
Perfect. So last summer, Nickelodeon revealed its plans to launch an animated spin-off of which cartoon?
All right, I see Sharon's hand is up. Sharon, do you know the answer? Sharon, I think you have to unmute yourself. No, okay, Nevin has the answer. Nevin.
Nevin is muted.
Nevin,
Come
can you hear
on.
us?
There we
Oh,
go.
there you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Zootopia.
Incorrect.
Oh, okay. Thought I did.
It's okay.
Sorry.
All right, Shiny, let's hear some of the options and see if someone can guess from the list.
So I'm going to give you guys some options. So option A, SpongeBob SquarePants. B, Rugrats. C, Baby Shark's Big Show.
All right, I see Kent's hand is up. Kent, do you have the answer? Kent, I think you're still muted there. Do you have the answer? All right, Stuart has his hand up.
Unfortunately,
Stuart.
the answer that I had in mind wasn't on the the answer I had in mind wasn't on the list.
Oh, it's okay. What would you have guessed?
Give it. I was gonna say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but since
Oh, that would
wasn't
be great.
since that wasn't offered, I'll go for SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yes, that's right. So earlier this week, the Nickelodeon Network had dropped the first teaser for the Patrick Star Show, a spin-off for SpongeBob's best friend Patrick Star, the pink starfish. So the series is actually scheduled to come out this July.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining our Now with Dave Brown session today. We are out of time, but we're super grateful for having you here today. Thank you for writing in. And remember, you can catch the show every day, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can listen to us on all major podcasting platforms as well. And you can interact with us on Twitter at AMI Audio. So thank you so much. Remember, feel free at any point to get in touch with the show. You can always email feedback@ami.ca if you have any more questions, and I'll pass that along to the team. Thanks again, guys, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.
guys.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye, guys.